June has arrived, and with it comes the official start of hurricane season.
From preparing our homes, shelters, and even hotels, we're breaking down what you need to know to weather every storm, no matter the size.
The storm is bigger, faster, and stronger than Hurricane Andrew.
East Orange community a bit low. Many neighbors are without water and power following Hurricane Irma, and they're also dealing with damage to their homes.
Tonight, we're also marking a somber anniversary in our state.
It's been 5 years since Hurricane Irma. The storm left a trail of destruction and unveiled even larger issues.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you were okay. I'm just so glad you're okay.
As we look back, we also look forward to making sure mistakes of the past are not repeated. Storm season 2022 starts now.
Storm season 2022, presented by Covenant Roofing.
Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Carrick.
I'm Mallory Nichols, and we're joining you from the beautiful National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Aircraft Operations Center in Lakeland, Florida.
Now, throughout the evening, our weather experts and news staff will bring you team coverage from across the state on everything you need to know to prepare for this year's hurricane season.
From ways to protect your home to an in-depth look at how hotels, stores, and even shelters are preparing for potential storms. Tonight, we're bringing you news you can use to protect yourself and your family.
Now, 2021 was yet another destructive hurricane season, particularly in the United States. There were 7 hurricanes, and the one that arguably caused the most devastation was Hurricane Ida. The storm hit Louisiana on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Ida also caused flooding along the Gulf Coast up to the northeast. When it was all over, nearly 100 people were dead.
4 different systems also soaked the Northeast, including Henri. The storm caused flooding and damage in the region. As for Florida, we were relatively unscathed. Elsa flirted with the Tampa region as a Category 1 hurricane before hitting the state's Big Bend as a tropical storm. Fred and Mindy each brought some winds, storm surge, and flooding to the Panhandle and northern Florida. But in South Florida and most of the Atlantic coast, the 2021 season was relatively a quiet one.
Last year, we saw 21 named storms, the third most for any Atlantic hurricane season. This year, forecasts call for at least 14 to 21 named storms, 6 to 10 of which could become hurricanes, and 3 to 6 potentially Category 3 strength or higher. An average season has 14 named storms, 7 of which become hurricanes and 3 major hurricanes.
There are a lot of different ways to get information for tropical forecasts. One of the most valuable is from hurricane hunters who fly planes directly into tropical systems to gather critical data used by forecasters. Spectrum News 13's Greg Angel caught up with a pilot here in Lakeland for a look at the work they do during the season and outside of it.
It's the start of June, and this prop plane is getting its final preps and checks. Most planes look for calm winds and blue skies. This one is not most planes.
One of the fastest, if not the fastest, propeller plane in the world.
For one crew member, Noah's flight base here in Lakeland, Florida is far different than growing up in South Dakota.
It was really a shock to the system. We moved here in July, and it was just, like going into a furnace, it felt like.
Not just living in the heat now, but living within the fiercest storms on Earth.
I'm Lieutenant Commander Alan Haug and part of the NOAA Corps, and I fly into hurricanes for a living.
Haug traded in 12 years in the Navy for a NOAA office, 10,000 feet in the air, flying at 210 knots.
Somebody described it to me as like being inside a washing machine on a roller coaster.
Let's show you what the Navigator means. Flight video shows not just the bumps and bounces and turbulence, but also the strength of Mother Nature.
Which is really one of the neater things you can see when you get in the eye wall is like in the bigger storms, like Ida was a Cat 4, and I was on this flight looking out the window and just seeing it like a big wall of clouds that goes up to 40,000 feet. It's pretty amazing to see.
Chipped paint on the propeller and patches on the plane's underbelly.
These are the 4 that I've flown on.
Tell the stories of each storm flown through. This plane named Kermit has been soaring through storms since the 1970s. Same mission, but some major upgrades. There's a crew of up to 20 on each flight, pilots, navigators, scientists, all working together to collect data on the storm. Kermit and Miss Piggy are cute names for a pair of planes outfitted for some serious science.
As far as instrumentation, we have many different places on the wing that we can hang things as far as our science equipment.
There are cameras and multiple radars and new age technology that now gives us the advantage.
Technology as far as the ability to get information off the plane has changed a lot since then. You know, we essentially have telemetry going back directly to the National Hurricane Center in real time, so that they don't have to wait for us to land to analyze these things, which I believe back in '92 or back in the earlier days, we had to wait until we landed to really get any of the data.
This advancement of technology now gives those on land more time to forecast and prepare and warn with precision. Predicting a storm's path and saving lives, that is the mission every flight.
Helping get an accurate forecast out to people, and they know what's going to happen, and they actually move, you know, and they trust the information that we're providing. That's a huge part of our job that we really take pride in.
In Polk County, Greg Angel, Spectrum News.
So that's the airborne look inside hurricanes, but what about from land? That's where radar comes into play, and we have at our fingertips the world's most powerful television radar, Klystron 13. Brian takes you on a guided tour behind the scenes of Klystron 13.
Just down the road here in West Cocoa, what looks like a golf ball on a tee is the best technology you're going to find anywhere. Let's go take a look. So here's our tower. On top of the tower itself, something we call a radome. In the radome, we actually have a dish that is scanning the horizon at 360 degrees. It's able to go out approximately 300 miles from where we're located. Gives us a great view of not only the state of Florida, but down into the Bahamas, giving you an earlier heads up on tropical activity and fronts that are coming in our direction. Now, the dome itself is actually able to shed rain at 10 times more than a typical radome would. When it comes to the 3 or 4 inch rainfall rates per hour, that is shedding that rainfall, so we're able to see through the rain and give you a clearer view of the storm itself. So welcome inside to our data and equipment center, and obviously here it's very loud. It's because we have a lot of high-end technology running all at the same time, not to mention the air conditioning unit that you really need to keep all of this equipment cooled 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is actually a raw look at Klystron 13, what we're able to see behind the scenes. What this does for us is it not only alerts us to anything that may have gone wrong, say a power outage here at the site, but it also allows us to change the elevation at which the radar is scanning the horizon. It gives us a look at storms that are farther out, storms that are closer. In any case, it gives us a better look at the storms, giving you more of a heads up. So when we take a sector scan of the storm itself, I'm able to grab, say, a 45-degree angle. What that does for us is it allows us to pick out the worst part of the storm, giving you more of a heads up when nasty weather is coming in our direction. So we've taken a look at Klystron 13 in the raw, but the secret sauce is actually in this cabinet right here. We can't open up this cabinet because Klystron 13 is working very hard right now. It's a linear beam vacuum tube, but let's put it this way. It is the most robust television radar in the world, working hard for you. But the weather experts at Spectrum News 13, the nation's only dual certified team of meteorologists, actually trained to use Klystron 13 to keep you ahead of the storm. Now let's check in with meteorologist David Heckert in the Weather Center.
Thanks, Brian. Now let's go a little bit more in depth on the world's most powerful television Doppler, Klystron 13. Klystron 13 was built in the summer of 2020. Now, Brian mentioned it being near Cocoa in Brevard County. So why so close to the coast? We want as clear of a line of sight of view as possible. So having Klystron on the coast allows the radar to see further out into the Atlantic for developing tropical systems. Klystron 13 takes advantage of a specially built Klystron tube to produce more power than any other television radar in Central Florida. So how does it work? Klystron 13 sends a beam of energy out to search for rain, storms, and tropical systems. Anything that beam hits is sent back to the radar and is then shown on Klystron 13. Klystron 13 scans all of Central Florida in just 60 seconds. That means our team of certified meteorologists gets minute-by-minute updates on threatening storms and hurricanes. But the real power with Klystron 13 is the dual pole technology. Most television Dopplers just scan using one beam of energy. Klystron 13 has dual pole technology, so it sends two beams of energy. This second beam allows Klystron 13 to determine the difference between hail, rain, and even debris that's flying into the air. And Klystron 13 is just one tool available in the Weather Center. A second Klystron Doppler from our sister station in Tampa Bay scans western Florida and the Gulf of Mexico for threatening weather. The two Klystron radars combined scan over 500,000 square miles, keeping an eye on developing tropical systems in both the Atlantic and in the Gulf. So this hurricane season, count on Klystron 13 for minute-by-minute updates for threatening weather. Mallory and Brian, back to you.
Thanks, David. So as you can see, whether it's a tropical storm, a hurricane, or severe weather threatening our area, you can trust our team of certified weather experts to use Klystron 13 to track storms like no one else in Central Florida can.
We're going to take our first quick break. Our Chris Gilson is going to guide us through some steps you can take to help protect your home.
And later, we're also taking you on an important shopping experience. Maureen McCann is making a list and checking it twice to make sure you have everything you need for this year's hurricane season. We'll be right back.
I'm certified meteorologist Amy Sweezy here in the Weather Center. Now, before you go, I have a trivia question for you. I'll be bringing you these throughout the hour, and here is the first one. Which part of a tropical system is considered the dirty side, or the area of most concern for the worst storm impacts? Now, don't look it up, no cheating. I'll have the answer for you right after the break.
Welcome back to Storm Season 2022. We're joining you from the beautiful NOAA Aircraft Operations Center here in Lakeland, Florida. This facility and its hurricane hunters play a critical role in tracking storms and helping us prepare.
When talking about preparation, making sure our homes are secured is a high priority, and insurance is crucial. However, Florida has faced a crisis when it comes to property insurance. That's because Florida insurers are canceling policies, leaving the state, or liquidating at a rapid pace. Spectrum News 13's Dahlia Dangerfield takes a closer look into the issue through the eyes of a homeowner.
Natalie Odenkamp's historic home is straight out of a fairy tale.
It's like a Hansel and Gretel house.
At first sight, she knew right away this quirky 1935 cottage would be hers. What Natalie did not know was there would be a villain in this housing fairy tale: skyrocketing insurance rates.
Right about here in this big peak.
One of Natalie's first insurance encounters came shortly after Hurricane Irma. High winds lifted the shingles of her home, causing lots of water damage inside.
I was so stressed out. I didn't know what to do because the house that I loved was falling apart, and I didn't really know what to do.
Natalie turned to her insurance company for help. After the deductible, she says they mailed her a check for $442. It wasn't enough to fix the problem.
Tears. It was tears of frustration. And, I pay into insurance. We all pay in every single month. And then when you do have a claim, it's very, very hard to get it processed and to actually get a check in your hand.
Now, 5 years after Hurricane Irma, more frustration when Natalie saw her latest insurance bill.
The new total policy premium is $3,961.
What did it used to be?
It used to be $2,400 and change.
Her premium has gone up by more than $1,000. At first, Natalie thought it was a mistake, and she considered shopping around for a better rate. But then real estate colleagues advised her to stick with her current insurance company, citing the lack of insurers in Florida these days.
The selling homes part is fun. The insurance part's not.
Market President Trevor Puskar says many of his home buyers are seeing insurance rates go up too.
We used to be able to quote people when they were getting into their home. Insurance was going to be around, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000. Now we're getting quotes at $5,000, or maybe you can't even get insurance because your roof's 10 years old.
In the meantime,
I want them to look exactly like what they looked like in 1935.
Natalie is restoring her windows and riding out the financial storm in her own fairy tale home. This homeowner refusing to let the higher insurance rates spoil her happy ending.
This house is, it's just happiness.
In Polk County, I'm Dahlia Dangerfield for Spectrum News.
Thank you, Dahlia. There are many home projects to consider ahead of a storm.
From roof inspections to trimming trees and purchasing hurricane shutters, certified meteorologist Chris Gilson walks us through some steps we could take right now to stay ahead of any potential storm this season.
There are so many things that can be done before any hurricane or tropical storm even nears the coast of Florida. Just go out into your backyard, take a look at the shrubs and the trees that you have, and see if they need to be trimmed up. When it comes to taking care of trees in your yard, it is best to just trim up some of the extra limbs from the interior of the tree. This will help thin it enough to allow the wind to flow more easily through the tree, and you'll also be removing any excess branches that could become projectiles. Another big item on the to-do list is have your roof examined. Make sure the shingles are in good shape and that the roof does not have any leaks. This is one part of the house that obviously needs to be able to withstand heavy rain, wind, and any object that may become airborne. When it comes to water intrusion, make sure that there are no cracks around your windows and doors. Seal up any cracks where water could potentially leak into your home and become a problem. One part of the home that can be overlooked is the garage door. Strong hurricane force winds could take out a garage door and really compromise the structure of a home. It's important to make sure that you have a wind code rated garage door. While current building codes require these types of doors to be installed, older homes may not have them. These doors have been tested to withstand hurricane force winds. Within the home, take an inventory of your valuables. This can easily be done either by going room to room and making a list of your personal belongings, or by taking a video tour of your home and uploading that video to the cloud. Generators also come in handy and should be bought well ahead of time. However, while useful, generators can often lead to death when they are improperly used. Never operate a generator in an enclosed space. Your generator needs to be at least 20 feet away from the home and away from windows, doors, and vents. Doing this will help prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. More people were killed by improperly using generators during Hurricane Irma than were killed directly by the storm. Of course, once the storm starts approaching Florida and there are hurricane watches or warnings being posted across the area, that's when you want to get outside and start gathering up any loose objects in the backyard and take them inside. Reporting in Orlando, I'm certified meteorologist Chris Gilson for Spectrum News 13.
In addition to following all of the steps Chris just showed us, it's also important to prepare an emergency kit.
That's right, Brian. And with the ongoing supply chain shortage, we're checking in to see how stores are working to keep shelves stocked with the supplies we need to prepare for a storm.
And what supplies exactly should you have? Our Maureen McCann takes us on a shopping trip to find out. Storm season 2022 returns in just a few minutes.
It is time now for the answer to our first trivia question. Which part of a tropical system is considered the dirty side, or the area of most concern for the worst storm impacts? The answer is the front right. And the reason for that is because that's the area inside the hurricane where two kinds of wind are coming together. You've got the wind rotating around the center of the storm, and you've also got the forward momentum of the forward moving hurricane. All right, here's your second trivia question of the evening. At what wind speed does a tropical storm become classified as a hurricane? We'll give you a few minutes to think about your answer, and I'll reveal the results coming up.
Welcome back to Storm Season 2022. You know, one of the most important messages we aim to get out every year at the start of the hurricane season is the importance of having necessary supplies.
That's right, Brian. But as you know, these last couple of years have been anything but normal. And right now, global supply chain issues and product shortages are making certain items harder to come by. Spectrum News 13's Nicole Griffin shows us how one hardware chain is taking creative measures to keep their warehouse full.
At Ace Hardware, things are always coming and going. Edward Heffernan is in charge of keeping track of it all.
I got it.
While he's worked at Ace for 40 years, becoming a manager at just 17 years old,
Mike, can you help find some of this stuff here, please?
his job is now tougher than usual.
This is the first time I've ever seen this in my life, yeah. It's been tough.
With supply chain issues keeping him on his toes, especially ahead of hurricane season.
You start working on the areas that you're running low on, and then something else pops up that was doing fine. So you never know what's going to be next. That's kind of the problem. So it's our biggest fight and battle.
It's why this year they started ordering 6 months early to get now hard to come by essentials like generators.
We were a little worried about that, but somebody's done their job somewhere and it's all coming into the warehouses.
Another tough item to order this year, propane tanks. They've had to get creative to get these back in stock.
There has been times when we've had to order stuff from other warehouses through ACE throughout the country, which does involve more cost than in shipping. And this is what we had to do with these a few months ago. We had to order these from another warehouse, quite a bit in shipping, but we didn't raise the price, so that gets expensive, you know, so we're absorbing the cost on that, not passing it on to the customer.
That's important to him, as is making sure his community is well stocked and prepared for any storm that could come our way.
Last one? All right.
Heffernan has his staff constantly monitoring the store's inventory, making sure they have plenty of orders for the items their customers want most during hurricane season so they never run out.
I try to keep it as limited as possible. Some tarps, batteries, some lanterns.
Oh yeah, you got tarps in there.
Mm-hmm. And those are what sold the best last year.
Despite all of their planning, some supplies are just hard to get a hold of this year, no matter what. Such as petroleum-based products like gas cans.
We have switched some products as well, you know, just to get what you can get. And to our surprise, it's been American made, so it's a nice feeling.
A feeling he hopes to pass on to his customers this hurricane season. In Winter Garden, Nicole Griffin, Spectrum News 13.
To make sure you have all the supplies you need and save a little money at the same time, Heffernan suggests Floridians stock up during the 2022 Disaster Preparedness Sales Tax holiday, which is happening right now through June 10th.
So as you can see, stores are working extra hard to make sure shelves are stocked with all of the necessary items. But what exactly should you be shopping for? Certified meteorologist Maureen McCann is taking us on an important shopping trip to find out.
Empty store shelves. We've all seen them when a tropical system threatens Florida. But there's no need to battle that last-minute rush if you are stocked before the season begins. Assembling a disaster preparedness kit is one of the easiest ways you can prepare your home and family.
Because once a storm comes, the stress level rises, and it's just so much easier to do it beforehand.
Shopping for your kit doesn't have to be expensive or time-consuming.
You don't have to buy everything all at once. When you do your weekly grocery trip, just buy things a little at a time, such as getting 1 gallon of water.
It is recommended that you have a gallon per person per day for at least 3 days. A personal strategy I have, take advantage of BOGOs or buy one get one sales. If you're buying something on BOGO, throw one in your cabinet for now and the other in your hurricane kit for later. Other recommended items you'll want to stock up on in addition to non-perishable foods, extra prescription medicine, flashlights and batteries, a weather radio, and a first aid kit. And of course, don't forget about your pets. You'll want to have food and water set aside for them too. Some ways you can save while stocking up: take advantage of traditional coupon clipping, like in the Sunday paper or store circulars, digital coupons through retailer websites, or savings apps like Ibotta, Checkout 51, and Coupons.com. As for shopping for a big ticket item like a generator,
very popular. So one of the most important things is you always want to start early before hurricane shows up. Make sure you have extension cords to run all the things that you want to run off of that generator.
And remember, you can't run a generator in an enclosed area, so longer extension cords are the call of the day. Another reason to shop early this year?
Also with the supply chain issues going on, that it may take longer to find some of those supplies.
So as you gather what you need, remember we want you to be prepared, not scared. If you're not sure what to buy, we have you covered with a printable list at mynews13.com. Just go to the storm season section. Maureen McCann, Spectrum News 13.
Some great advice, Maureen. Now, while you're getting your house in order, be sure to check in on neighbors who may not be able to prepare on their own. There is indeed strength in numbers, and that support could very well help save someone's life in the event of a powerful storm.
That help for one another was showcased 5 years ago when Hurricane Irma made landfall in Florida. The storm caused severe damage and led to a number of deaths.
Now ahead, we take a look back at this historic storm, the issues it revealed in our state, and the changes made since then. Storm season 2022 will return in just a moment.
All right, time now for the answer to our second trivia question. At what wind speed does a tropical storm become classified as a hurricane? The answer to this is 74 miles per hour. So it's also important to remember that if a storm is 72 or 73 miles per hour, obviously it can still have a lot of damage associated with it, even if it's still officially a tropical storm. So tropical storm or hurricane, either way, always be prepared for a storm when it happens. All right, let's take a look now at our third trivia question of the evening. What is the most dangerous aspect of a hurricane? A is wind, B, storm surge, or C, falling pressure. I'll have that answer coming up in our second half hour. We'll see you soon.
It's a huge state. From Jacksonville, Florida in the northeast all the way down to Key West is a long distance. And we are talking about a storm that had damage in Key West, damage in Jacksonville, and southwest in Naples, and the central part of the state and the southeast, literally the entire state of Florida was impacted by the storm because of its size and because of the route that it took. We have a long way to go, but we want to thank all the great wishes that we got from all my colleagues here and people from around the country. This is a storm that impacts Florida in ways we're going to feel for a long time.
Hard to believe, but it's now been 5 years since Florida found itself bracing for what ended up being one of the Atlantic Basin's strongest and costliest hurricanes on record.
Hurricane Irma was a long-lived system from August 30th to September 12th. The storm ended up making a total of 7 landfalls and leaving a trail of destruction.
Long after power was restored to people's homes and most of the trees across Central Florida were eventually cleared away, flooding problems still lingered for many residents across Central Florida. Spectrum News 13's Jeff Allen looked into what's been done since Irma to mitigate that flooding and what problems some homeowners are still dealing with nearly 5 years later.
Clarence Laster's 1977 Rolls-Royce was his only car to survive Hurricane Irma. He says the construction of this classically built car protected it from floodwater. 3 other cars in the driveway were totaled.
It just blew the water out of the exhaust and that was it.
Laster recalls what he heard waking up to National Guard troops knocking on his door, coming to rescue him as floodwaters were rushing through his neighborhood and into his home.
I opened the door and water started rushing in there. He said, close the door back, close the door back.
Orlo Vista was one of several parts of Central Florida where people had to be rescued. Dozens were pulled to safety in the Spring Oaks neighborhood in Seminole County, where several homes back up to the Little Wekiva River. The owner of one of those homes, Doreen Kosachowski, did need rescuing, but she says water came close to coming inside her house. She says in her 40 years of living there, Irma caused the worst flooding she's seen, and since then the river has been overflowing more frequently.
I will say 5 years ago this started happening.
The Altamont Springs city manager says the city has used federal money to repair damage Irma did to drainage systems along the Little Wekiva River, which could help prevent flooding from becoming any worse. But homes along the river are in a naturally flood-prone area, built before FEMA established the area as a floodplain. So homeowners like Kosachowski have a choice: stay and deal with the risk, or move.
What else can I do? What else can I do? I love my house. I love the neighborhood. People are very nice around here. I'm not in the position that I can afford to move. So I have to stay here.
Back in Orange County, Laster's home was one of 500 flooded during Irma. It had to be gutted. After a year in a hotel, he returned home and was able to fix some things. Thanks to 30 years working as an engineer at Disney, he was able to repair his AC unit.
And I took this cover off here and leaned that fan motor up, and I dried the fan motor out.
And do some other electrical work. But thanks to insurance money delays and a shortage of contractors, he's still waiting, nearly 5 years later, for other home repairs. There's still mold in his bathroom.
They're going to come back and do that skylight up there, the ceiling, and they're going to do all of that.
Orange County planners say they're digging the nearby retention ponds deeper and improving pump stations so flooding like what happened after Irma doesn't happen again.
When it flooded, all of this right here looked like a lake around here. All around here looked like a lake.
Laster says thanks to the response after Irma and improvement projects now underway, he's not worried if another Irma comes. Jeff Allen, Spectrum News 13.
We checked with counties across Central Florida to see what improvement projects they've worked on to repair Irma's damage and prepare for future storms. We also checked in with local power companies to see how they've strengthened their grids for those storms. You can find that information for where you live on our website, mynews13.com. There you can also find a link to a tool that allows you to see where flood-prone areas are located across Central Florida.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control reports that Hurricane Irma caused the deaths of 134 Floridians in 2017, but the indirect death count was likely much higher.
In the years that followed, researchers concluded that over 400 additional patients died within 90 days of the storm. Their research was prompted by the heat-related deaths of 12 residents at a Broward County nursing home. Authorities say those deaths were caused when the storm disabled the central air conditioning and the staff failed to move patients to a nearby hospital.
The tragedy launched investigations and rule changes when it comes to nursing homes having backup power. Now, 5 years later, Spectrum News 13's Curtis McLeod is checking in with locations across Central Florida to see how they're working to keep residents safe.
Working out is just one of the many activities Jerry Haas enjoys at Harbor Chase Dr. Phillips.
No, it's a wonderful community, it really is.
She's lived here at this senior living community for nearly 4 years, experiencing 3 hurricane seasons. The most memorable, she says, would have to be the first, back in September 2019, when Hurricane Dorian came churning up the East Coast. Jerry says despite the storm moving through parts of Central Florida, inside the walls of her community, it was business as usual.
They did all they could do for us, and they kept us safe.
And kept them safe by having a pretty sound hurricane plan. Executive Director Daryl Waltner
Good morning.
is responsible for putting that plan together, ensuring the safety of everyone in the community.
Hello, Rudell.
My Valentine.
Yes, I am still your Valentine. Yeah. We always are looking at a plan of action through the whole course of the year. Even as a hurricane is actually going on the year prior, we're looking at what worked, what didn't work.
One of the top priorities, he says, are the essentials like food. Rain, shine, or storm, people still have to be fed. And there's even backup power too. Former Governor Rick Scott mandated emergency backup power after Hurricane Irma in 2017 knocked out the air conditioning system at the Rehabilitation Center at Hollywood Hills, leading to sweltering conditions. Authorities attributed as many as 12 deaths to the conditions inside the community.
This generator is designed to run all the essential pieces of our community. So our kitchen, our elevators, our emergency outlets, which can provide oxygen to some of our residents who truly need those types of services.
According to a state database, nursing homes and assisted living communities in Central Florida and Tampa Bay regions do have generators. But we found at least 15 of these communities are not in full compliance with state power plans.
Good morning.
But that's not the case for Daryl and Harbor Chase. They are in full compliance, and their generator in reserve could keep them operational for about 14 days. With experience working through flooding during Hurricane Harvey, Daryl says he and his team are fully prepared for the upcoming hurricane season.
One of the things you have to always make sure you do is you have to keep the morale up and remain calm.
Calm like Jerry Haas, who's finishing up her workout for the day. She says she's confident should a hurricane come her way, this community has her back.
I felt safe. I've always felt safe.
In Orlando, Curtis McLeod, Spectrum News.
If a long-term care agency does not comply with state law, they could have their license revoked by the Agency for Healthcare Administration, or AHCA. The rules also requiring nursing homes to have sufficient fuel available for 96 hours after the loss of electrical power during a declared state of emergency. Nursing homes must have stored on site a minimum of 72 hours of fuel.
A lot of people were directly impacted by Hurricane Irma, including the folks here at the NOAA Aircraft Operations Center in Lakeland.
Now here with us now is flights meteorologist and flight director Nikki Hathaway. Nikki, we really appreciate you taking some time to join us today. So what exactly is it you do on flight?
Sure, thanks for having me. Everybody on board our aircraft has a specific responsibility that they're expected to uphold. So as the flight director or the flight meteorologist on board our aircraft, either the P3 or our G4 jet, What I'm doing is really three main things. The first thing being safety. So we have a belly radar, or the MMR. You'll see that big black M&M under the underside of our P3s, as well as our nose radar. So those are really what I'm monitoring to provide recommendations to our pilots, saying, using my meteorology background, how I would recommend we go through the storm, at what angles, what tracks, things like that. So safety of utmost importance. And then the second thing I'm doing is really on the communication liaison between the back of the aircraft and the front. So we have scientists on board the back, we have engineers, data technicians, all of which are doing their job and making sure we're capturing the best data for the people and the public. From there, they have scientific objectives. So I'm working with those scientists to make sure their objectives are being reached and essentially completed. And so I will work with the flight in the front, kind of be that liaison between the back and the front of the aircraft. And then lastly, I'm really the data steward. So all the data that comes on board our aircraft, whether that be from the drop wind sounds or other expendables, our flight aircraft, our radar, the tail Doppler radar in the back, I'm quality controlling this data before it leaves the aircraft and makes it into the hands of the National Hurricane Center forecasters and those folks on the ground.
Yeah, and speaking of the data that you get, you're holding a
drop wind sonde.
Okay, and tell us, how do you get that into the system?
Sure. So these are actually launched from the back of the aircraft. And so they're going to fall vertically, and they're going to be capturing things like temperature, humidity, wind speed, wind direction, pressure, all the meteorological parameters that you would essentially want to capture in the tropical cyclone and the envelope surrounding that tropical cyclone. And so we'll pepper the storm with maybe about 30 of these, depending on the mission, maybe more, maybe fewer. And they're targeting areas like radius of max winds, the midpoint of the storm, the end point. So center, of course, right? Once we hunt the center and mark that, we'll drop a drop sonde through. And so that's really what these are doing.
Okay. And obviously, you don't mind roller coasters.
That's right. I can handle some turbulence. Right.
Nikki Hathaway, flight meteorologist and director, thank you so much for taking some time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
This location, just one of many statewide, working hard to secure their facility and get prepared for this year's hurricane season.
Now, when we come back, we'll take a look at the steps hotels and even a local hurricane shelter takes to prepare for a potential storm. Storm season 2022 returns after a quick break.
It is time now for the answer to our third trivia question. What is the most dangerous aspect of a hurricane? A, wind, B, storm surge, or C, falling pressure? The answer to this one is B, it's storm surge. Now, here on the east side of the state of Florida, storm surge really isn't a big concern for us, but on the west side of Florida and all along the Gulf Coast, it is something they definitely need to keep in mind for a landfalling hurricane. All right, let's take a look now at our fourth trivia question of the evening. Hurricanes in the northern hemisphere spin in which direction? Now, don't Google it. Think long and hard. I'll have the answer for you in just a few minutes.
Thanks for joining us this evening for Storm Season 2022. Throughout this hour, we've been sharing stories and tips to make sure you're prepared for this year's hurricane season. And that information is not just for Florida residents, but tourists as well.
According to Visit Florida, last year, even amid the pandemic, more than 122 million people visited the Sunshine State. So we wanted to see how places they visit, like hotels, make sure travelers stay safe. Spectrum News 13's Julie Gargata joins us from Winter Garden with that part of the story.
In order for a place to feel this carefree, guests just cruising through their vacay, there's a team guiding the ship.
And then if you could just make sure to follow up.
Rod O'Connor at the helm. The general manager, his facilities director by his side, zips around the 100-acre property that makes up the Grove Resort.
At least 3 times a day.
Walks it even more. How many steps he covers daily?
I'm not sure, but the way I gauge it is the amount of shoes that I go through on an annual basis.
It's 3. But only once a year does O'Connor, who grew up spending summers behind the front desk at a resort in Princeton, New Jersey, spend this much time leaning on his facilities director.
So we have a lot of stuff right here, and it's going to be a lot more.
Prepping for hurricane season. Jeffrey Bogan's tasked with amassing the supplies for the more than 800-room property in case of a hurricane.
Well, that's good.
Bottled water, generators, glow sticks.
Flashlights for every bedroom.
More than 800, just imagine. And big flashlights like these for the managers. And with supply chain crisis delays.
Well, that's why we have to, prepare way ahead of time.
There is no waiting until the last minute, as many homeowners might do. This is the biggest property Bogan's ever worked for. But as a lifelong Floridian who's been through Wilma,
Ready to go.
And Charlie, he gets that preparation is more than just power from a massive 200 kilowatt generator.
I prepared for many, even if it wasn't, from the hotel business.
Each having a plan.
Preparation as it begins for the heavy winds. You have the plan with you. Okay, good. Each individual department has a checklist.
Department by department. And for O'Connor, who grew up in a large Irish family, brothers and sisters who work in business, he always wanted to work on the people side of things.
This is my family.
In Winter Garden, Julie Gargata, Spectrum News 13.
Thank you, Julie. The Grove has a new app to communicate with guests amid severe weather. And for those less plugged in, they still hand deliver bulletins to rooms.
In Central Florida, first responders start working hard months before any sign of a tropical storm. And a huge part of that work is getting shelters ready to house people in case of an emergency. Spectrum News 13's Molly Durig recently went to Seminole County to find out how emergency managers are preparing.
Aaron Funk says this is his busiest time of year. Aaron's the operations manager for Seminole County's Emergency Management Department. Right now, he's getting a crate of medical cots ready to move to a nearby emergency shelter.
Preparing for things, planning, training, exercising. It's very similar to what we do or what we did day to day in the military.
Aaron leans on his Army experience a lot in this job. He says it's the opposite of predictable.
Working on a grant application 1 minute, next minute, hauling equipment out to help deal with a wildfire and evacuate people for sheltering. So it gets interesting. You never know what you're going to deal with each day.
To cut down on that uncertainty, Aaron's team spends lots of hours prepping ahead of hurricane season. Today, they're testing out a backup electric generator at one of the county's shelters to make sure it's ready to power the shelter in case commercial power goes out during an emergency. Everything's got to be tested now, so if there are any problems, the team's got time to fix them. Time to check to see if that 500 kilowatt generator is actually working. It's almost like a little scavenger hunt, making sure everything's in place. First up, the school's air conditioning chillers.
Looks good, both chillers are running, so now we got to go and see what the actual electrical draw is on the generator. Watch your head.
Aaron's looking out for the well-being of others as usual. Another test now.
It's going to let us know that we have electrical power at the power outlet circuits.
But he's still got to walk the school to be absolutely sure. We're not identifying which school this is. The county doesn't publish any shelter locations until they're staffed and ready to accommodate people during an emergency. Aaron says there's reasons why certain schools are selected as shelters over others. Location, staffing resources, and of course, the building structure itself.
This is the cafeteria area, the central space in this particular facility. It is one of the most secure to any type of hurricane event that we may have. The exterior of the school is protected with hurricane-rated shutters.
The county retrofitted the school with those hurricane shutters back in 2013. Upping the building's protection against tropical events. Hopefully, it won't be put to the real test this hurricane season. But if it is, Aaron says his team will be ready.
Our job is to really think of anything that could potentially happen.
In Seminole County, Molly Durig, Spectrum News 13.
Thank you, Molly. Now you can also check out our website, mynews13.com, for more links to emergency shelters and resources throughout Central Florida.
More storm season 2022 after the break here on Spectrum News 13.
Time now for the answer to our fourth trivia question. Hurricanes in the northern hemisphere spin in which direction? The answer is counterclockwise. And you probably guessed that hurricanes in the southern hemisphere do just the opposite. They spin in a clockwise fashion there. All right, let's take a look now at our fifth and final trivia question of the evening. What is the weather usually like in the eye of a hurricane? I'll have that answer coming up after one final break. Storm season 2022 returns in just a moment. Time now for the answer to our final trivia question. What is the weather usually like in the eye of a hurricane? The answer is calm. And that's why it's very important for us to remind you that when you do have the eye of a hurricane passing overhead, you don't go outside. Because remember, the backside of the storm, strong winds still coming through the area are going to happen, and that can be just as dangerous as the front side of the storm. All right, Brian and Mallory, we'll send it back to you.
We hope you've enjoyed our trivia questions this evening. And remember, if you ever have any weather-related questions, you can always send us an email. You can find that information on our website, mynews13.com.
And remember, don't be scared, be prepared. Dealing with a hurricane is stressful enough, so taking care of what you can ahead of time will let you focus on more urgent issues if that time comes.
And if it does, our team of certified meteorologists will be with you every step of the way, before, during, and after a storm. Thanks so much for joining us this evening for Storm Season 2022.
Storm Season 2022, presented by Covenant Roofing.